Welcome to another profile of a Sacramento startup founder. Today I'm with Vitaliy. Vitaliy, why don't you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you and your background, and then we'll dive into your startup.
Great. Well, my name is Vitaliy Merkulov. I'm the founder of Renter Inc. Well, the website is renterinc.com. And a little bit about myself. I'm a landlord myself, and I have a couple rental units. And a couple of years ago, I had a bad tenant that cost me about $10,000 in total because of back rent and eviction and property damages. And I realized that the current tools that landlords have or are using are not good enough for landlords anymore in this day and age. There's a lot of different ways that bad tenants can go around the system and not show up in a credit report or eviction report. So I've created Renter Inc. and basically it's an additional tool that landlords can use to screen tenants a lot better than what the current tools.
So this idea came about from, a personal pain that you had as a landlord. So you're basically taking an idea you had for yourself and taking it to the world.
Definitely. I mean, this is something that I came about because I'm a landlord, and this is something that is dear to my heart. It's not an idea that somebody else came up with. This is something I want to help my fellow landlords in an area and nationwide. It's going to help me. Mm-hmm. So that's why I'm doing it, because it's going to help me and other landlords.
Did you have any other experience in startups or entrepreneurship before launching this?
No, I don't have any kind of startup experience. I've started attending these startup events and just when I started the startup.
Okay.
So I have a business degree, but that doesn't teach you anything about startup.
Right. So it's a lot of learn as you go kind of thing, right?
Exactly.
So tell me about how you got found a team to work with and how you initially validated your idea, found that there was a market, that kind of the initial journey starting out on Renter.
Yeah, so first I did this as a part-time thing after work, and the way I validated the idea is in rental industry there's a website called biggerpockets.com, and basically this is where a lot of rental industry is chatting. It's a big forum, you can ask a lot of questions. So I asked them, hey, is there other ways that people can predict if a bad tenant is about to be in your rental unit? And a lot of people say it sounds too good to be true. There isn't a central database where people can share information about their previous tenant. A lot of it has to do with current regulations. A lot of it has to do with the fact that you can't have a blacklist on someone. So I'm saying, well, there's got to be a better way than that. And it took me about 6 months. I actually had a couple attorney friends who were helping me through it. I did most of the work, researched a lot of regulation, FCRA compliance and FCC compliances, and I brought them a bunch of papers and said, hey, I think there's a way that we can do this legally. It'll help landlords, and it also will protect tenants at the same time if we do it this way. And they looked through it. One of them was very helpful. I mean, it cost me about $1,000 because they're so expensive, but I was able to validate that this is something that can be legally done. That was the number one thing. Once I figured out that this can be legally done, I went on and started asking a lot of landlords, contacted the landlords, property managers, and went to all these forums where landlords hang out and said, hey, if there was a thing like this, would you use it? Or how much would you pay? And a lot of people said, hey, this sounds too good to be true, but if you can do it, great. We would use it. We would use it because it costs people a lot of money to evict people, or there's a lot of times landlords pay out bad tenants just for them to leave. So that costs a lot of money. So for them to pay $50, $20 for a report that will prevent them from not renting to a bad tenant, they're willing to pay for it. And landlords are the ones who have the money usually, big landlords. But so we have a really good revenue model there because they're paying customers. There could be paying customers. some of the other validations were when we actually built the product and we launched it. A lot of landlords come to us and say, "Hey, we didn't even think this existed. This could exist, but looks like you guys are doing it. We love it." They're asking their other landlord friends to join, write reviews about their bad tenants or good tenants, so nobody else would rent to them. And then there's also people who write good reviews also, but right now it has been mostly bad reviews.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I mean, right now we're in our second year of a startup. Right now I'm doing that full time, and we're at the point where we're growing. We have companies looking to integrate with us, and we're at a point where we can't move forward without a big amount of investment.
Mm-hmm. So you said you took like 6 months to do just due diligence and market validation?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't gonna start something and then fail. Well, there's a big chance one out of 10 startups succeed. So there's still a chance that we would fail,
Mm-hmm.
but I wanted to minimize it to as much as possible. But 6 months was the first validation was, is this legal? Can this be legally done? Because that is the number one thing that people are asking. Hey, is this legal?
Mm-hmm.
You know? So yeah, it took me a while to do that. And then about 6 months to develop the beta version.
Was that a website or a software as a service, or what's the main platform?
Yeah, it's a website right now because landlords, we did the research, most landlords are 40 to 60 years old. So they are not into cell phones yet. So
I'm in that demographic. I use my cell phone.
I know, but you're in startup. But yeah, that's where I felt comfortable because that's my background. I'm a front-end developer.
Oh, okay.
So I feel comfortable with websites, and then once we can prove the model in websites, I mean, we can take that and convert it into an app.
Mm-hmm.
But right now we're working on.
So tell us a little bit about your team. What have you got? We were here at 1 Million Cups event at HackerLab, and you had a slide about your team. Really kind of an impressive team with some of the people on your, I think it was your board. Talk about who you've got in your dugout, so to speak.
Yeah. So one of the biggest things that I learned through reading startup books and podcasts is that you can't do it yourself. So team is very important, and not just the team, but people who've done it before. So one of the first things I did was I went on Angel List, and I created a profile, and I submitted a couple of equity-only positions that people would join. And people look around, and I get about 20 different applicants per day from Angel List alone. And I have to, I mean, a lot of them are just not qualified. So, but it shows that that website is very good at acquiring people who are looking for equity type of employees. So I was able to get one of the guys, AJ. He used to work for Glassdoor. He was one of the first marketing directors there in 2008. So he wants to join us just because he saw us on Angel List. And then I've been part of startup community here. I met Oleg, who was part of Sarda. He's a landlord himself. He likes the idea. He wants to be an advisor on the role, so he takes a little chunk of the company too, just because he's done it before. He knows the industry, and I'm not willing to take like, hey, this is my company. I'm taking 100% of it, and I'm not giving anything to anyone. I want to build this as a product, and if there are people who've done it before and they can be very instrumental into the company, I'm willing to give away chunks of the company because I know that it'll cost me a lot more in my mistakes. So there are a couple other advisors on the team. There are developers. Developers, we pay a very small fee because they're outsourced, and they're, I mean, I used my own money. I spent about $30,000 of my own money right now. For developers overseas, 10 to 15 bucks an hour compared to 70 to 100 bucks an hour here. So the team was very important, but we're still looking for more people. We're still looking for those people that have done a startup before and know the ins and outs of it, so we don't waste our money and time and effort on things that just waste.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what stage are you at right now as far as your development? You've got a product out there, an MVP at least. You've gone through some beta testing, it sounds like, if not more. What stage are you at as far in your development, and what are you looking for as far as funding and whatnot?
Yeah, so we are launching our second version of our website that will have a integration with a huge database that will give us about 55 million records, and that's going to be in January. Once we're done with that, we have 3 partners that are planning to integrate with our system that will allow us to pull in a lot of more records. So we're basically at a point where we're looking for 240,000 in order for us to help us grow, and basically we need that money to go to pay this genius AJ who used to work at Glassdoor. He's gonna explode this thing in Sacramento. So marketing to all the landlords and property managers in our area. Also, it's gonna go to development and integrations. Those are really expensive pieces of connections, because we're gonna be part of mainstream tenant screening software companies. They're gonna be using hundreds of different requests per day. And so we need to upgrade our infrastructure, our servers, so they won't crash or anything like that. So you got to scale up. We got to scale up, because these are main guys. I mean, one of them said they have 45 million records. So we already have 45 million, and then 2 other ones, a little smaller one. I think one of the other ones has about 25 million records. So we're going to be the hub of all of this information, and we need the money in order to be able to not embarrass ourselves, right? We need to have a product that will work for them, and then in the end, other tenant screening companies will come in and want to use us too. And you're focused first on Sacramento, I'm assuming, and hoping at some point to scale out broader than Sacramento. What's your dream or goal 6 months from now? Where do you hope to be? So we have a plan. In 6 months, we'll have integrations with 3 major databases that will put us a little over 100 million reviews in not necessarily in our database, but access to it. So we would be like a hub that would be able to search multiple databases. That's our goal. After 6 months, we're going to have a API that will allow people from different softwares. So a lot of landlords use different property management software to be able to submit reviews right from their software into our database. That way they don't have to go away from their software and then come to our website and submit information. It'll automatically come because that information is already there. So 6 months from now, we're going to have a big database. In a year, hopefully we're going to be able to raise another round. So, yeah. Awesome. So talk about any huge wins you've had so far. What are some wins you've had, and then maybe some of the biggest challenges or hurdles you've had to overcome? Let's start with basically in this year we were able to launch our beta version. We're able to get into local newspapers and people talking about us, radio shows. We were invited to. We were part of the real estate investor group, presented there too. So people are interested in it. So we're getting publicity out there. We also have partners who are willing to work with us. Where before people are like, hey, once you get to a certain point, then it'll make sense for us to. But right now, people are starting to realize, hey, these guys know what they're doing. We want to invest into them. Yeah, you made it into Comstock's mag for Startup of the Month, I think. What month was that? September. So that's got to be a pretty huge deal. Yeah. We got a lot of hits from that, and then Sacramento News and Review contacted us and said, hey, they wrote a lot of good stuff, but there's some people who might not be excited about your product because there's a lot of renters out there who don't want to. So was that one of the biggest challenges you've had to face? Yeah, so there was a lot of negativity that I guess came from that, it was mostly because people didn't really understand how our system also protects the tenants, and we were able to, retarget that and show to the tenant that, hey, this is actually good for you. We also, the other biggest problem is we ran out of money. I ran out of money. So
that's probably a pretty common problem that a lot of startups have.
Yeah, and then but we were able to get a product out. We were able to get people to use it. So I think we're at the point where we can show investors that, hey, this is something that might be a big thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So what are the biggest lessons learned so far for you?
You can't do it yourself. You can't do it yourself. No matter how much you want to keep 100% of the company, it's not smart to do. Most people want to do that and get greedy, but it's all about connections, and it's all about knowing the right people who know how to do this stuff, and reach out to them. I know there's a lot of people here in Sacramento who I can just come up to and ask them, hey, what do you think about this? And they're not like, oh, sign this document and I'll tell you. People are generally willing to help, so that's a really good thing. And I mean, if it wasn't for people in the startup community here, we would never even be heard in Comstock or any of these places. So it's very important to know that startups are built in the community. It's a community project, right? You can't be yourself unless you have a lot of money, and most startup owners don't. So I think that would be the biggest lesson that we learn is if there is a startup community in your city, definitely take everything you can out of that, you know. And if there isn't, try to build one.
Yeah. So you mentioned the startup community here in Sacramento. Talk about that. What do you think are you talked a little about some of the good aspects of it. What else is good about the startup community here, and what do we need to grow and go to the next level here in Sacramento?
One of the biggest things I think for our startup would be a reputable incubator program. I know there are a couple of them here, but we kind of researched some of them, and we still feel that if we're going to be in an incubator, we want to be in a top-notch incubator where we'll be able to spend 6 weeks or so. So a lot of times that would mean somewhere in the Bay Area because we're so close. So what I want to see in Sacramento is to have a professional, very top-notch incubator program in the future where we don't have to drive to the Bay Area to be part of an incubator. We will be able to do it here. And one of the biggest reasons is we don't really have the money here in Sacramento. There's 2 or 3 venture capital companies here in Sacramento compared to, how many in the Bay Area. So I think the other thing would be, I guess there's just not that many startups here. We're just a small city here compared to the Bay Area, which is dominating everything that's happening. I mean, it's it's national, world known area for that, and we're just 2-3 hours away, so nobody really cares about us. Everybody just goes there. So I'd love to get maybe some kind of government assistance. I know Sacramento is trying to do the self-driving cars now, and they're trying to grow our startup community here, and I'd love to see that grow, So
any advice for other startup founders, entrepreneurs, maybe just starting on their journey, or maybe not quite as far along as you are? What experience can you have to give to them?
Most people say startups will consume your life, and it's true. But if you learn to manage your time wisely, you're able to do it. So a lot of people are scared of getting into startup because they know that it's going to be their baby, it's going to be their life. But if you are good with your money and you're good with your time, and you know how to manage your time wisely, then this is something that you can do. And I've learned it the hard way over a year. The other thing is I would say that startups are exciting. This is something that has been, I would say, like my baby. You know, like when I was working at different companies, I worked for Apple, Intel, Sharp, these big companies. You go there, you create products, you work in a great team, but it's not yours, and you don't have the feel for it. Whereas if you're doing something that you love and you feel like you're doing something for the greater good for other people, you have passion for that, and that's the kind of that's the kind of life I want to live. I mean, we don't have that many years in our life, and I want to be part of something that I love rather than doing something that I just do because I get paid. So
good insight. Yeah. Anything else you'd like to share to wrap things up?
I mean, I just want to thank you guys. I mean, startup community, you're one of the leaders here, and I just want to thank you guys for making that possible. And I'd love to see what you guys have in the future, and what our startup community, how good it's going to be in the future.
Awesome. And we're hoping to see great things from you and Renter. So
right.
Thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.